press record.
It's been recorded.
It's been recorded. Very good.
Okay, so now let's just see if we have any. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. Jackie has asked, what is this parasympathetic system that I have heard being mentioned in some talks this morning? Now, I know Nick mentioned that in his talk this morning. Nick unfortunately can't join us right now. I don't know whether our other presenters are aware of the parasympathetic system and would care to comment. I'm going to put Jo Kay on the spot here and ask if she has any knowledge of this.
Well, I'm not a doctor in any sense of the word. I can tell you more about what the effect of the sympathetic nervous system is.
I think that would be helpful.
What it is. So essentially, when we feel threatened by something, and the part of our brain becomes activated called the amygdala, it activates the sympathetic nervous system. So in other words, we are activated to fight, flight, or freeze, and all of the things that need to happen in our body. So hormones get released that prevent, allow us to run or hide or fight. Cortisol, adrenaline. So this is what happens when we have a threat reaction, which, as I mentioned in my talk, is happening a lot at the moment. Our threats are really intangible. Even reading the news can trigger a threat reaction, or social media, for instance. When it's activated, you can't think straight. You get kind of, it's hard to, you kind of, they call it flipping your lid. The part of your brain needed for executive functioning is really affected. You're basically down to your simplest form of just survival. So when you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, that's what overrides that reaction. It turns the alarm off in the back of the head, the amygdala. I'm really talking very basically here. So, I'm not a neuroscientist, but that's essentially what is happening. And it's our breath that supports us to activate the parasympathetic nervous system so we can then feel calmer, less activated, come back to a more neutral space of kind of thriving with natural stress rather than activated and unable to survive with the level of stress that we're experiencing. So breath really helps that process. I hope that answers the question if you've got any more, and helps rest and digest. Thank you very much. That's another great way to describe it. Rest and digest is kind of a thriving, healthy state that we all really want to be in. Basically, our digestive system's working. We know we can sleep well. We're not overwhelmed by life. And that's what the parasympathetic system, when that's in good form, in good state, then we can really activate that part of ourselves.
That's lovely. So thank you very much. I've had a question on the chat, and someone has asked, I'm lucky enough to be furloughed, but I'm finding it difficult to find any structure to my day. I'm on my own from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. and have always gone out into the workplace before. I'd like some coping strategies, please. I go out every day to the shops just to see other people, but what else can you recommend? Who would like to address that? I wonder who I should ask. I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, Melanie Pearl, who I can see on this call. Perhaps you would like to address that, Melanie.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, everyone. Really interesting morning. So yes, this being on furlough, which for some people sounds great. Well, I've heard people saying, well, my colleagues are on furlough, that means they don't need to be doing anything, and I'm left struggling with all the work. But actually, that's not how it feels when you're on furlough, because each day feels the same. You're concerned what's going to happen at the end of that time. You've not got very much to do, and you're thinking about, should I be looking for a job, and probably are looking for a job. Hopefully the end is in sight now, so we hope that those who are on furlough will come off furlough, but of course there's no guarantee. So I would say keep yourself busy. as best you possibly can. Now that might be looking for a job, so that's, and then that we can help you with is having a plan of action. How am I going to look for a job? Have I got everything in place? Have I got my CV up to date? Have I thought about who am I going to apply to? Where am I going to apply? How do I start? It might be further, you might have got further along the lines and you might be actually applying now. And then I would say have some structure to your day, set some goals as you would in the workplace to make sure that you're actually achieving what you would want to. So what am I going to achieve today? One of the speakers this morning said, what am I going to achieve today? It was Joanna Michaels was talking a lot about that. Think about, what am I going to achieve today? What are my goals for today? Yes, my long-term goal is to find a job in case I need to, but what's actually going to happen today? What's going to happen tomorrow? Break it down into small bite-sized chunks. And then the other thing I would say is look to volunteer. And I've spoken to clients who have said, you know what, employers are just writing off this period. They don't mind what you've done. I still think you're in a stronger position if you're able to talk about something that you've achieved during that time. And so if you can volunteer, first of all, that's really good for your mental health because you've got a purpose, you've got a sense of purpose, you've got something that you need to do. You don't have to volunteer every day. You can volunteer half a day a week, you can volunteer 1 day a week. You can volunteer from home. If you're worried about going out at the moment. There are some very good websites for getting volunteering roles. The Jewish Volunteering Network, the secular equivalent, Reach Volunteering, are very good sources for doing that. But most importantly, have some structure to your day, do something. Training as well. There's a lot of free training available online on various online websites like LinkedIn Learning and Future Learn. But have some structure, I think, is the key point, and do something different each day.
Lovely. Thank you very, very much, Melanie. Got a couple of other questions that have come in. Someone has asked, I'm finding it hard to adapt to pivoting my business to offering an online solution, and I think I've lost revenue as a result. Do you have any ideas? I think I'm going to ask Joanna Michaels if she wouldn't mind stepping in to answer this one. Joanna, if you wouldn't mind switching yourself on. You are the expert after all. Are you there, Joanna?
She is, but she's on. Joanna, we can't hear you. No, you're.
I unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Is that
perfect?
better?
Yeah,
that's much better.
That's good. Okay, so the question was how to pivot the business from
it is,
online.
Yes.
Okay, so of course it's quite a general question, and I would need to know a little bit more about the business itself, because I don't know whether it's a consulting business, whether it's a service-based business, whether this is products. So again, as mentioned earlier, there are quite a few free resources available out there on switching from offline to online mode. If that will be of any help, the startup and small business support organization called Enterprise Nation has quite a few of webinars and seminars on the subject from practitioners. So maybe that's something worth checking out. And a lot of those sessions are still coming out during lunch times. The rest of them are pre-recorded. So I think looking at options there and obtaining the know-how from people who've done it before, I think that would be quite helpful. Obviously, without knowing exactly what the business is about. So if it's a consultancy business, then of course there are ways of using online sources and creating your online courses. I don't really know what you're doing, so knowing a little bit more would be helpful. But like I said, Enterprise Nation as a source supported by the government can help you finding ways of pivoting offline to online. Mm-hmm.
That's really helpful. It's a good start. I think we also have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time. It's step by step by step. And as long as we have a starting point with some strong, initiatives to commence our either business journey or our employment journey, putting one foot in front of the other and taking that positive step is a great way forward.
and obviously, Emma,
go ahead.
If anybody has got a business that hasn't been able to pivot to online, and you still feel that you want to do that, please come and have a one-to-one business meeting with either myself or Kim, and we'll help talk about what the options might be for you as well.
I can see that Susan Graff has her hand up. So Susan, if you'd like to, given that you have your hand up, if you'd like to unmute yourself, happy to address.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much for your presentation. I thought it was really useful. But following on from what somebody asked about doing things on furlough, I actually wrote a program when I was a wife alone in another country about what to do each day, like setting targets, but maybe joining classes as well. I just thought that might be of interest for people who maybe their children are grown up as well. They're not married and they're alone in a country, or in England even now during furlough, etc., etc. And thank you very much. I really found today useful.
Thank you so much. I have some other questions here. We just have a few more minutes for questions. I've been asked, I work part-time and there have been a lot of changes in my workplace over the last few months, and I find it quite hard to keep up and it's quite unsettling. Can you advise? Now, I think my colleague Richard is on this call. Richard Linden, are you here, Richard? I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah.
Hi, Richard.
Are you, I wonder if from this question, hi everyone, by the way. I wonder from this question if you mean that you're working part-time, lots of things are happening and therefore your workload's increased, or maybe you're being asked to do things you're not so familiar with and it's requiring a lot of your time. Do you think that's the question, Emma?
I'm not certain. I think it's both of those things, but I also think it's this sense that when you're part-time, you don't necessarily keep up with everything because you miss certain things that are going on as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's all about changing the workplace, really. And any thoughts about it, Richard?
Yeah, I think one thing I would do, I mean, often when we're in work, I know speaking to clients and for myself, it's really good to have very clear idea of what your job actually is. So if you find things are changing, if you find you're not sort of up to speed with everything, or there's things that are happening that you're not quite sure about, then I would advise maybe having a chat with your manager or whoever you work closely with, and just getting a very clear idea of what's happening. And of course, if there's lots of changes and lots of things happening that are quite daunting, then it's great to have that conversation and really to set out, certainly over the coming months, what you're actually going to do and sort of how you need to work differently in order to meet your challenges and your demands from the job. So I think it's about having a conversation with your direct superior, manager, or speaking to your close colleagues and just basically ironing out what exactly it is that you need to do, and hopefully that will make it less daunting and give you a better chance to work with a clearer head, I suppose.
I think that's very true. I would also add that it may well be that your manager, your supervisor or whatever, is completely unaware of how you're feeling. They've got issues of their own, worries of their own, priorities of their own. And just by finding an opportunity at a moment where there isn't a particular stress or particular time pressures that people are under, to have that conversation may be as illuminating for your manager as it actually is for you as well. So we can sometimes work ourselves up and find these questions, the thought of having these conversations very, very difficult. Invariably, the thought of having the conversation is very, very seldom, as you know, the thought of having it is always so much worse, I should say, than the actual having of the conversation. And we wish we'd have done it a whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
So do pick the right moment, and do be brave is another thing that I would say. Your courage and your bravery will invariably be paid off. No problems at all. I should say that one of my super colleagues in the workplace, Sharon De Winter, has put on the chat. Sharon runs an organization called Emunah, another communal organization in the community. who we know well. And she's actually said that British Immuno would love volunteers to help out there. So if anyone is thinking about, you know, looking for something extra to do in the volunteering space, to keep focused, to keep busy, to keep engaged, also to upskill yourself and become involved, right now, there's an opportunity for you. Reach out to Sharon through Emunar. If you don't know how to find her at Emunar, come via us at Work Avenue and we will happily connect you. She runs a super organization. And I should also say she's a super person herself. You know, a great opportunity for you there. Another question has been asked, and this is an interesting question. How do you support staff going through a bereavement of another member of staff? My goodness, it may be that many of us, or at least some of us, have had that circumstance and that situation today. This is really a very, very sad reflection of our times, I guess, and a very, very demanding question. Very hard to know where to start. I'm going to ask my very wise colleague Melanie again, if she wouldn't mind addressing this at least to begin.
Sure. I mean, this is clearly something that a lot of people are going through, and employers often actually don't know how to handle it. So it's, you know, so it is a tough one. They should, but they don't always. And I think sometimes you have to bring it up. You have to bring it to their attention, which is tough. So what we hope is that employers will speak to you, and will, you know, if anyone's in a situation where they have lost a loved one, that they will be very understanding and thoughtful, allow you whatever time you need, be there really, which is, I think, all that they can do. I think if you're in a situation where you're wanting to talk to your employer, I think find a quiet time, ask them, say to them, I'd like to have a conversation, a little bit like the question before, you know, find that space and let them know how you're feeling and say, look, you know, I know work has to carry on, but I want to let you know sort of what the situation is. If you want time off, talk to them about that. Talk to them about the flexibility. A lot of companies will be flexible. Some will actually have bereavement policies, compassionate leave policies, where you're allowed a certain amount of time off. And others will be just sort of flexible, really, and happy to talk to you. I think it's important to talk. I think that's the key point. If you feel you're not getting enough time off, if you try and obviously talk to them and see if you can get more, but do offer to take time out of your holiday if that's not feasible, to take unpaid leave, but just to let people know, look, I need this time, I will get past it, but right now I do need this time. You can also ask for reasonable adjustments in the workplace. So you might find that you need to perhaps a little bit of time working perhaps fewer hours. Perhaps you need to look after another relative who's been affected, and talk to them about that. You can actually ask for flexible working anyway, that's part of your rights. But talking informally is, I think, probably the best way to go about it. Does that answer the question? If it doesn't, very happy to talk to whoever raised it individually.
Thank you. And Pamela has asked a question to Nikki Mann. How good are cholesterol reducing yogurts like Benecol? I was told that Yakult is very good for cleansing the gut. Is that true? Nikki.
So yeah, I just need to unmute myself, which I have done. I read the question actually, so I had a couple of nanosecond to think about it. They're good. They are good. They are good for the healthy gut bacteria that we talked about, which is highly important for physical and mental well-being. There are other sources in terms of good gut bacteria. We talked about the omega-3, or I talked about the omega-3 in the session that you may have attended. They are good for good bacteria. I don't know if they're quite as good as the marketing hype would allow to do. There's other good sources of gut-loving bacteria. We talked a little bit about avocados in my session. They're very good. The omega-3 salmons and things, all of this is good for the gut.
Thank you. And there's another question that, whilst you've got your sound on, Nikki, that I'd like to address to you. The stresses of trying to keep my business afloat during the past year are literally keeping me awake at night. Are there any nutritional approaches that can help with reducing the impacts of that?
Well, we've talked about that.
I wasn't in your session, sorry. Maybe this person wasn't either.
Healthy body, healthy mind. Sleep is a whole subject which backs up nutrition, which I didn't dare go near in the half an hour available to me. There's many things you can do to help your sleep. In terms of the nutritional aspects, don't eat within 2 hours of going to bed. Keep the sugars down, keep your energy levels steady. Caffeine, there's some school of thought that it should be taken earlier in the day, well, not too early. Apparently you shouldn't have a coffee when you wake up. Have it between like 10:30 in the morning and 1:30, certainly no later in the day.
Well, that's me done for.
You're done for anyway, Emma, because we talked about the benefits of proper hydration, i.e. water.
Well, that's a very personal matter, Nikki.
So yes, but sleep is a good subject. There's many things non-dietary that you can do. Obviously, I think there's a whole conversation going on about blue glasses. Was that to do with sleep? Probably was. But certainly don't eat within 2 hours of going to bed. Caffeine earlier in the day, and try and keep your blood sugar constant during the day.
Thank you. Great response. Just checking on time. One final question. I'm an older person and I have been furloughed for quite a number of months now, and I'm losing my confidence about going back to work, which of course I hope to do. Any strategies to help me cope with that? I'm going to ask Jo Kay if she's got any thoughts on the matter. Sorry, Jo.
That's okay. I think that's, yeah, I mean, applies to all of us at certain stages of our lives, doesn't it? That sense of, do we have what it takes to get back out there when we've had a lull or a pause? I think it applies to people who've had a baby, that moment of, coming back to work. I think maybe from my perspective, I come at things from a more body-centered, mindfulness, paying attention kind of way. I think it's exploring what those fears might be in a gentle way. It's difficult because to actually listen deeply, to tune in, to ask the difficult questions, what is it I'm actually afraid of, can be quite difficult. Journaling can really help with that. Really placing our fears down on paper and reading them, because sometimes the fears are just fears, are not really based on reality or truth. Our thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are just thoughts that we've carried with us our whole lives. So journaling, tuning in, taking time to notice feelings of anxiety when we think about going back to work, and seeing where we can just pause into that and relax. And sometimes it's the feeling that overrides the truth. It's that natural anxiousness that can come. So I guess it's being authentic with what we're really afraid of, and seeing if we can maybe even get a coach or someone to help us through that period of time. And it doesn't have to be for weeks on end. Sometimes a couple of sessions with someone who reflects what we're feeling and makes us see what we do have, concentrating on our values and our strengths and what we can offer.
Fabulous. I'm very conscious of time. I think those were some super thoughts to actually end our conference this morning, Jo. So thank you very much for that. we started out just 3.5 short hours ago, and I think it was 3.5 hours ago, and we have really covered so many fantastic sessions this morning from a whole team of really rather remarkable and insightful facilitators who've taken us through so many fields that are so relevant to all of us in our times today, and actually not just in the times today. We're very used to, everything is in the current pandemic and the exceptional times we're in, but actually everything that we've discussed this morning applies very much to the times we're in, but it will continue to apply when hopefully the world moves to a less intense and a less imperative critical state that it's in at the moment, and we can still apply all the tips and the learnings that we've had from all our super speakers this morning. I don't think Zoe's still with us on our call, but I thank her so much for her session this morning. I also want to thank Nick, who's not with us, and of course our 3 marvelous presenters who are still with us, Joanna, Joe and Nikki. Thank you to you all. Thanks also to the Work Avenue team who have supported us. And of course, most of all, I thank you all so much for engaging with our conference today at Work Avenue. The fact that so many of you joined us is testament to how important this topic is, and how much we need to take some time to reflect and build in these tips into our day-to-day lives, our working lives, and make it part of our sort of agenda moving forward as well. This was our first Wellbeing at Work conference. I have a sneaky suspicion it's not going to be our last Wellbeing at Work conference. I don't know whether the next one will be virtual or in person. That will be something that the Times will tell next year. But I thank you all so much for taking the time to join us this morning. Every recording will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel as well. So if you felt you missed something, and of course we all missed something because we didn't attend every session, everything will be there to be able to be caught up later. Do reach out to any of us at Work Avenue. Our email addresses can all be found on our website, or just phone and ask for any of us. And also, I'm sure that all our presenters left their contact details on the slide, so they'll also be available as well, should you want to reach out to any of our presenters today. And if you have lost those details, we'll be happy to direct your inquiry, if you'd like to reach out through us. Thank you all so much. The sun is shining. We can all take a lunchtime walk. And I hope you've all had a great conference. I'm going to close down the session now. Thank you all very much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.